The storm came without warning. Rain pounded my roof like 1,000 fists, each drop a warning I didn't heed. I was in my Raleigh kitchen, kneading dough for tomorrow's bread when the lights flickered. A sharp crack split the air. Sparks flew from the old outlet by the stove. Flames licked the curtains, hungry and fast. My heart raced, pounding in my ears. I grabbed my purse, my scorched wallet, and ran into the night, rain soaking my nightgown. My home, my sanctuary of 30 years, burned behind me. Everything I'd built, gone in a flash. At the motel, the neon sign buzzed like a dying fly. I sat on a lumpy bed, clutching my wallet. Inside, a faded card caught my eye. Theo Lawson's name, scrawled in his steady hand, stared back. My first love from a lifetime ago. I hadn't spoken to him in decades, but his number felt like a lifeline. My fingers trembled, hesitating. Would he even remember me? I was 58, widowed and alone. My sacrifices for my son, Mark, flashed before me. Late nights sewing his school uniforms, skipping meals to pay his tuition. I smiled bitterly. They didn't know my secret, tucked in a locked diary at the bottom of my bag. I dialed Mark first, my only child. The phone rang twice. "Mom, it's late," he said, voice clipped. I explained the fire, my voice shaken. "Can I stay with you, just for a bit?" Silence stretched, heavy. "Well, Sabrina and I need our space," he said. "You know how it is." My chest tightened, his words like ice water doused over my heart. Space? I'd given him everything, my youth, my dreams. I mumbled a weak, "Okay," and hung up. Tears burned my eyes. Betrayal cut deeper than the fire's heat. I stared at Theo's card again. Memories flooded in. Summer picnics, his laugh, our plans to open a bakery before life pulled us apart. I'd raised Mark alone after his father died, pouring love into every meal, every scraped knee. Those were the good days, when Mark's tiny hands helped me roll dough, when we danced to old records in the living room. Now he couldn't spare a couch. My fingers dialed Theo's number, heart pounding. "Hello?" His voice, warm and steady, hadn't changed. "Theo, it's Helen," I whispered. I need help." He arrived at the motel within hours, his pickup truck rumbling through the storm. His gray hair was damp, his eyes kind. "Helen," he said, hugging me gently. "Come with me." I hesitated, clutching my bag. "I don't want to be a burden," I said, voice small. He shook his head. "You're never a burden." His words warmed me, a flicker of hope in the dark. I followed him, leaving the motel's flickering lights behind. My diary, with its secrets, stayed close. Theo's farm was a world away, nestled in rolling hills. The air smelled of earth and pine. He led me to a guest room, simple but cozy, with a quilt that reminded me of my mother's. "Rest," he said. "We'll figure this out." I nodded, too tired to speak. Alone, I opened my diary, its pages filled with recipes and dreams I'd buried. Tucked inside was a bank statement, a small savings account my late husband had left hidden from Mark. They didn't know. I smiled, a spark of defiance in my chest. Morning brought sunlight through lace curtains. Theo was in the kitchen brewing coffee. "Sleep okay?" he asked, handing me a mug. "Better than I expected," I admitted, sipping the bitter warmth. He gestured to the garden outside, rows of tomatoes and herbs. "Thought you might like to help out here," he said. "Or cook. Whatever you want." His voice was steady, no pressure. I nodded, feeling something stir, a rhythm I'd forgotten. I pulled out an old recipe book from my bag, its pages worn but loved. Baking had always been my refuge, days blended into a quiet routine. I gardened with Theo, my hands in the soil, pulling weeds. We cooked simple meals, the kitchen filling with scents of rosemary and garlic. I flipped through my recipe book, remembering the joy of creating. Theo listened as I talked, my voice soft at first, then stronger. "I used to dream of a bakery," I said one evening, chopping onions. He smiled. "Still could." His words lingered, a seed planted. I wasn't ready to dream big, not yet. Mark's rejection still stung, a wound that wouldn't close. One afternoon, Theo found me staring at my recipe book. "You should share this," he said, tapping the page. "Teach others. There's a community kitchen in town. My company can fund it." I blinked, surprised. "Teach me?" My voice wavered. He nodded. "Call it bread and memories? Bring people together." The idea sparked something, a flicker of purpose. I imagined a room full of elderly faces, sharing stories over dough. But doubt crept in. "What if no one comes?" I asked. Theo shrugged. "They will." "You've got something special, Helen." I agreed, tentative but curious. We set up the community kitchen, a small grant covering flour and yeast. Word spread fast. Soon, gray-haired locals filled the room, their hands kneading dough, their voices sharing tales of lost loves and old homes. I taught them my mother's sourdough recipe, my heart swelling. For the first time in years, I felt seen. But whispers reached me. Mark and Sabrina were coming to the farm. My stomach twisted. They wanted something, I could feel it. They arrived on a Sunday, Mark's car kicking up dust. "Mom," he said, hugging me stiffly. Sabrina stood back, her smile tight. "Nice place?" she said, eyes scanning the farm. We sat at Theo's table, tension thick. Mark cleared his throat. "Well, we're looking at a new house," he said. "Need a co-signer for the mortgage, for convenience." My hands froze on my coffee mug. Convenience? I'd sacrificed everything for him, and now this? Suspicion coiled in my gut. Something wasn't right. I glanced at Theo, his eyes steady but sharp. "What kind of house?" I asked, voice calm but probing. Mark shifted, uneasy. "Big one. Good investment," he mumbled. Sabrina chimed in. "It's perfect for us, Helen. You'd be helping." Her tone was sweet, but it felt like poison. I smiled, hiding my anger. They didn't know about my savings, my secret. "I'll think about it," I said, my voice steady. Inside, my heart screamed, "I've given enough." That night, I found Mark's loan papers in my old desk, left behind in the fire's chaos. Pages detailed his debts, far beyond what he'd admitted. My hands shook. He wasn't just asking for help, he was using me. I sat on the porch, diary open, the savings account statement glaring up. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I looked at the stars, anger rising. "I won't be their pawn," I whispered. Theo stepped outside, his shadow soft. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, resolute. "I'm going to act." My voice was firm, a promise to myself. Anger simmered in my chest, a slow burn I couldn't shake. Mark's loan papers lay open on Theo's kitchen table, numbers glaring like accusations. I'd sacrificed 30 years for him, stitching his dreams together while mine frayed. Late nights, empty cupboards, all for his future. And now, a mortgage cosign? My hands tightened around my coffee mug. The farm's quiet hum, crickets, and distant cows did little to soothe me. Theo sat across, silent, his eyes steady. "You don't have to decide now," he said, voice low. I nodded, but my mind churned. They didn't know my secret, tucked away in that savings account. Flashbacks haunted me as I worked in the garden. I saw Mark at 5, giggling as we baked cookies, flour dusting his nose. We'd dance in the kitchen, radio crackling with old tunes. I gave up culinary school, my dreams of a bakery to keep him fed after his father died. Every sacrifice was love, poured into him like batter into a pan. Now his voice echoed. We need space, Mom. Space? I'd given him my world. My spade hit the soil hard, dirt flying. Something was wrong, and I felt it in my bones. Mark and Sabrina's visit lingered like a bad smell. Their words, smooth and calculated, replayed in my head. "It's just a signature, Mom," Mark had said, his smile too tight. Sabrina nodded, her eyes cold. "It'll help us start fresh," she added, adjusting her scarf. I'd smiled back, my face a mask. Inside, suspicion coiled tighter. Why the rush? Why me? I needed dough in the community kitchen, my hands steady but my mind racing. The elderly locals chattered, their stories of lost homes blending with mine. I wasn't alone, but I felt it. Theo noticed my silence. "Talk to me, Helen," he said one evening, chopping carrots. His knife paused, his gaze soft but probing. I sighed, flour dusting my apron. "Mark's not telling me everything," I said. "Those papers, they're hiding something." Theo nodded slowly. "Trust your gut," he said. "You've always been sharp." His words warmed me like sunlight on the farm's fields. I flipped through my recipe book, landing on a sourdough recipe. Baking kept me grounded, but the papers gnawed at me. I dug deeper, driven by a need to know. In my room, I spread the loan documents out, my eyes scanning every line. Debts piled high, credit cards, car loans, more than Mark could handle. My heart sank. He wasn't just struggling, he was drowning. I found a note in his handwriting, tucked in the papers. "Ask Mom first." My blood ran cold. They'd planned this, banking on my love, my guilt. I clutched my diary, the savings account statement inside. It was my husband's last gift, a secret I'd kept even from Mark. They didn't know. Bread and memories grew, the community kitchen buzzing. Old folks shared tales of wartime recipes, their hands kneading dough beside mine. I taught them my mother's bread, the scent of yeast calming my nerves. But Mark's shadow loomed. He called, his voice hurried. "Mom, thought about the loan?" he asked. I paused, stirring batter. "Still thinking," I said, my tone flat. He hesitated. "Well, it's urgent, okay?" "Urgency?" My jaw tightened. His words felt like thorns, pricking my trust. I hung up, my hands shaking. Sabrina sent a text next. "Helen, we're counting on you. It's family." Family? I laughed, sharp and bitter. Where was the family when my house burned? I showed the text to Theo, my voice low. "They're pushing too hard," I said. He leaned back, arms crossed. "Sounds like they're desperate," he said, his tone even. Desperate. The word hit me like a stone. I remembered Mark's teenage tantrums, his need for control, Sabrina's neat smile, her talk of boundaries. They were boxing me in. One night I found an old bank letter in my diary confirming the savings account. $5,000, not much, but mine. My husband had set it aside, whispering, "For your dreams, Helen." I'd hidden it, fearing Mark would ask for it. Now I saw why. His debts were a black hole, and I was the lifeline. My anger flared, hot and sharp. I paced the porch, stars above me. "They think I'm weak," I muttered. Theo stepped out, his shadow soft. "You're not," he said. "Never were." His voice anchored me, but my resolve hardened. I started planning, quietly but deliberately. I called a friend, a retired banker, to check Mark's financial history. She confirmed my fears. His debts were public, his credit shot. "He's leaning on you, Helen," she said, her voice kind. I nodded, gripping the phone. "I know." My tone was firm, no waver. I kept teaching in the kitchen, smiling for the locals, but my mind worked overtime. Mark and Sabrina would visit again, I knew it. I'd be ready. My diary stayed close, its secrets my shield. Their car rolled up a week later, dust swirling. Mark hugged me too quickly. "Mom, we need to talk," he said, his eyes darting. Sabrina smiled, her lips tight. "It's about the house," she said, her voice sweet but sharp. I led them to the table, my heart steady. "Tell me," I said, folding my arms. Mark cleared his throat. "The bank needs a co-signer by next week," he said. "You're our best shot." I looked at them, my smile thin. They didn't know I'd seen their truth. I wasn't their pawn anymore. My heart pounded, a drumbeat of anger and resolve. Mark and Sabrina sat across from me, their faces a mix of hope and strain. The farm's kitchen smelled of fresh bread, but their words soured the air. "Mom, it's just a signature," Mark said, his voice quick, almost pleading. Sabrina nodded, her smile tight. "It'll secure our future, Helen," she said, her eyes flicking to Mark. I leaned back, arms crossed, my suspicion a living thing. I'd sacrificed everything, 30 years of dreams, sleep, love, for him. And now this, their desperation clung like damp rot. I thought of the past, those warm nights when Mark and I baked together, his small hands shaping dough. I'd worked double shifts, my back aching to pay for his school trips. Every penny, every tear was for him. Now, his loan papers burned in my mind, a map of his debts I'd found in the ashes of my old life. $5,000 sat in my secret savings account, my husband's last gift. They didn't know. I smiled, sharp and quiet, my anger a coiled spring. "I'll think about it," I said, my voice steady but cold. Theo watched from the counter, silent, his eyes sharp. He knew me, saw the storm brewing inside. "Need more coffee?" he asked, his tone calm but pointed. I shook my head, my gaze locked on Mark. "Why the rush?" I asked, my words slow, probing. Mark shifted, uneasy. "Well, the bank's strict, Mom," he mumbled, rubbing his neck. Sabrina chimed in. "It's a great deal, Helen. We can't lose it." Her voice was smooth, but it felt like a blade. My chest tightened, their lies like thorns. That night, I sat alone, my diary open. The savings account statement stared back, a promise of freedom. I remembered my husband's voice, soft and sure. "For your bakery, Helen." I'd hidden it from Mark, sensing his greed even then. Now, his debts confirmed it. I'd called my banker friend again, her voice grim. "He's in deep, Helen. Don't sign." My anger flared, hot and fierce. I wasn't just a mother, I was a woman with dreams they'd ignored. I closed the diary, my resolve iron. Bread and memories kept me sane. The community kitchen buzzed with laughter, old hands kneading dough, stories of lost loves filling the air. I taught them my grandmother's rye bread, the scent grounding me. But Mark's shadow loomed. He called again, his voice tense. "Mom, any decision?" he asked. I paused, stirring flour. "Not yet," I said, my tone flat. He sighed loudly. "Well, we're counting on you." "Counting on me?" I laughed, bitter. They'd counted on my silence, my sacrifice for too long. Theo saw my tension. "You're stronger than they think," he said, tending his garden. His words were a lifeline, his presence steady. I nodded, digging into the soil. "I'm done being their crutch," I said, my voice low but firm. He smiled, his eyes warm. "Good. You've got this." His faith fueled me, a spark in the dark. I planned my stand, quiet but deliberate. The fundraising night for the class was coming, co-sponsored by Theo's company. I'd face them there in front of everyone. I prepared like a soldier. I photocopied the loan papers, circled Mark's debts in red. My savings statement stayed hidden, my secret weapon. I practiced my words, my voice steady in the mirror. "I sacrificed for you, Mark," I whispered, testing the truth. "But I'm not your bank." My heart raced, a mix of fear and fire. I wasn't weak, not anymore. Theo watched me rehearse, his nod silent but proud. "You're ready," he said. I was. The betrayal cut deep, but I'd turn it into strength. The fundraising night arrived, the community hall glowing with soft lights. Tables held my bread, the air rich with yeast and hope. Locals chatted, their faces warm. I wore my best dress, my diary tucked in my purse. Mark and Sabrina walked in, their smiles forced. "Nice event, Mom," Mark said, his eyes darting. Sabrina nodded, her scarf perfect. "Really sweet, Helen," she said, her tone too bright. I smiled, my heart steel. They didn't know what was coming. The microphone hummed as I stepped up. My voice trembled, then steadied. "Thank you all for supporting Bread and Memories," I began, my eyes on the crowd. Mark clapped, oblivious. I took a breath, my anger rising. "I've given everything for family," I said, my gaze locking on him. "But family doesn't mean sacrifice without respect." His smile faded, his face pale. Sabrina shifted, her eyes wide. The crowd hushed, sensing the shift. I held up the loan papers, my hands steady. "I found these," I said, my voice clear. "Debts you hid, Mark. You asked me to co-sign, to risk my future." Gasps rippled through the room. Mark stood, his voice sharp. "Mom, you're abandoning me," he snapped. I laughed, cold and sure. "Abandon? I gave you 30 years. You closed the door." Sabrina looked away, her face flushed. I turned to the crowd, my voice rising. "I'm not a victim. I'm Helen Moore, and I choose me." The microphone's echo faded, but my heart thundered, a storm finally unleashed. The crowd's eyes locked on me, their silence heavy with shock. Mark stood frozen, his face a mask of shame and fury. Sabrina clutched her purse, her cheeks flushed, avoiding my gaze. I'd laid bare their plan, my voice steady, my anger a fire that burned clean. 30 years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, empty savings, and dreams buried for Mark's future had led to this. I wasn't their pawn anymore. My secret savings, $5,000 hidden in my diary, stayed unspoken. They didn't know, and that was my power. I stepped off the stage, my legs trembling but my spine straight. Theo met me, his hand brushing mine, his eyes proud. "You did it," he whispered, his voice warm. I nodded, a weight lifted from my chest. Liberation tasted sharp, like biting into fresh bread. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others whispering. An old woman from the class squeezed my arm. "Good for you, Helen," she said, her smile kind. I smiled back, my heart swelling. I wasn't invisible anymore. Mark stormed over, his voice low but sharp. "Mom, how could you? In front of everyone." His eyes darted, betrayed. I looked at him, my son, the boy I'd raised. "You hid your debts, Mark," I said, my tone calm but firm. "You asked me to risk everything." He opened his mouth, then closed it, his shoulders slumping. Sabrina stepped forward, her voice shaky. "Helen, we needed help," she said, her eyes flickering with guilt. I shook my head. "Not like this," I said. "Family doesn't use family." The night ended, the hall emptying, but my words lingered. Theo drove me back to the farm, the road dark and quiet. "You were fierce," he said, his voice soft. I laughed, a small, tired sound. "I was scared," I admitted, my fingers tracing my diary's edge. He glanced over, his eyes steady. "Didn't look it." His faith anchored me, a warmth I hadn't felt in years. I thought of my husband, his voice echoing. "For your dreams, Helen." I wasn't done dreaming. Days passed, the sting of the confrontation fading. Mark didn't call, and I didn't reach out. My heart ached, But I refused to bend. I'd given enough. The community kitchen buzzed. Bread and memories growing stronger. Old folks brought recipes, their hands steady as we baked. I taught them my father's cornbread, its buttery scent filling the air. Laughter replaced my anger, each loaf a step toward healing. But Mark's absence gnawed a quiet wound. Theo and I started renovating a cabin on his farm. It was small, with pine walls rough but sturdy. "Your space," he said, hammering a nail. I smiled, my heart light. "With a big oven," I added, picturing racks of baking molds. We worked side by side, sanding boards, painting shutters. The cabin took shape. 2 porches, an open kitchen, a place for me. Not his, not Mark's, mine. I moved in, my diary on the table, my savings untouched. Freedom felt real, like flour dust in my hands. One morning, Mark's car pulled up. My stomach twisted, but I stood tall, wiping flour from my apron. He stepped out, alone, his face tired. "Mom," he said, hesitating, I'm sorry." His voice broke, raw with remorse. I paused, my heart softening but cautious. "Why now?" I asked, my tone even. He rubbed his neck, eyes down. "The loan fell through," he admitted. "I was wrong to push you." I nodded, my anger gone, replaced by pity. "You hurt me, Mark," I said, "but you're still my son." I invited him to the next class, a small olive branch. He showed up, awkward, washing dishes as the elderly laughed. Sabrina came too, her scarf gone, her smile softer. "Can I help?" she asked, her voice tentative. I handed her a cloth, my eyes meeting hers. "Wipe the table," I said, my tone kind but firm. She nodded, her hands moving slowly. The room hummed with chatter, bread baking, and stories shared. My heart warmed, a fragile hope blooming. The cabin became my sanctuary, its oven glowing each morning. I baked for the class, for myself, for the life I was building. Theo stopped by, his presence easy. "Looks like home," he said, leaning on the porch. I smiled, my heart full. "It is," I said, my voice steady. We sat, sipping coffee, the air rich with pine. I wasn't rushing to love, not yet. But his quiet support, his steady gaze, felt like enough. I was enough. Bread and Memories grew, a sign now reading, Saturdays at 3 p.m. Locals flocked, their stories weaving into mine. Mark volunteered weekly, his hands clumsy but earnest. Sabrina softened, her walls crumbling. She laughed once, flour on her cheek, and I saw the woman beneath her defenses. My family was healing, not perfect, but real. I looked at my cabin, my oven, my life. I'd lost a house, but I'd found myself. The old door was shut, and a new one stood open. My cabin stood proud on the farm's edge, its pine walls glowing in the morning sun. I woke to birdsong, my oven already warm, dough rising on the counter. The scent of cinnamon filled the air, a reminder of the life I'd rebuilt. Mark's apology lingered, his remorse a bridge we were slowly crossing. Sabrina's softened smile, her hands helping in the kitchen, showed cracks in her walls. Theo's quiet presence, his steady support, felt like a warm quilt on a cool night. I wasn't rushing into love, but I cherished our shared moments, our easy talks on the porch. My heart was at peace, a calm sea after the storm. I reflected on my journey, each step a lesson etched in my soul. I'd learned that self-worth doesn't fade with age. It grows, like yeast in dough, rising stronger with time. I looked at my hands, flour-dusted and capable, and saw strength I'd once ignored. Family isn't just blood. It's loyalty, respect, and mutual care. Mark's betrayal had stung, but his growth through volunteering showed that change was possible. Sabrina's empathy, blooming like a late flower, reminded me that people can evolve. I forgave them, not fully, but enough to heal. True love, like Theo's, supports without chains. He gave me space to stand, his actions speaking louder than words. You choose, he'd say, his voice gentle. I chose independence, my cabin a symbol of that freedom. It's never too late to reclaim your dignity, to blaze a new path. I thought of my sacrifices, 30 years poured into Mark, dreams set aside. They weren't wasted, they shaped me. Now, honor them by living fully, teaching others through bread and memories. Oh, the class became a hub, Saturdays alive with chatter and baking. Old folks shared war stories, lost loves, and recipes passed down. Mark washed dishes, his laugh genuine. Sabrina wiped tables, her questions curious. How do you make this crust so flaky? She asked once, her eyes bright. I smiled, guiding her hands. Patience and practice, I said. The room hummed, a tapestry of lives woven together. I funded small grants for the elderly, inspired by Theo's help, turning pain into purpose. I sat on my porch, diary open, the savings account statement a relic of my secret strength. $5,000, untouched, waited for my dreams. Perhaps a bakery expansion or travel to see old friends. The choices were mine. I watched the sunset, colors painting the sky, and felt profound gratitude. Betrayal had cracked me open, but resilience filled the gaps. Older women hold power. Our wisdom is a quiet force. We nurture, but we also stand firm. Sharing this feels intimate, like whispering over warm bread. If you're reading, know this. Your light doesn't dim with years. It shines brighter, guiding you home. Family mends with honesty, not guilt. Love thrives in freedom, not obligation. I confide in you as a friend. Never let anyone steal your voice. Speak up, bake your truth, and watch your world rise. My heart is full, my life vibrant. The fire took my house, but it sparked my soul. Mark visited more, our talks deeper. I get it now, Mom, he said one day, helping knead dough. His eyes met mine, sincere. I nodded, my voice soft. Good, keep growing. Sabrina joined us. Her attitude shifted, her warmth real. Theo and I renovated a bit more, adding flower boxes to the cabin. Looks perfect, he said, his hand in mine. I squeezed it, content. Our bond was mature, unhurried, a gentle flame. The community thrived, bread and memories drawing new faces. I taught classes, my stories inspiring. An old man shared his mother's biscuit recipe, tears in his eyes. You've given us a home, he said. I hugged him, my heart swelling. Healing came in layers, like laminated dough. My family reconciled, not overnight, but steadily. Mark's debts eased with hard work, his pride humbled. Sabrina opened up, her boundaries now doors, not walls. I baked alone sometimes, reflecting on justice. No one went to jail, no bankruptcy crushed them. They paid in lessons, in changed hearts. Selective forgiveness felt right, humanity in the mix. I wasn't gloating, I was free. Philosophical thoughts filled my days. Freedom is priceless, self-esteem a daily bake. I learned to value myself, to see my power. Older people aren't burdens. We're anchors, wise and strong. As I close this chapter, I share wisdom like a recipe. Mix resilience with love, add a dash of boundaries, bake until golden. It's never too late. My cabin, my class, my life, they're proof. I smile, kneading dough, my heart at ease. The old life ended, but this one blooms. You too can rise. I sit on my cabin's porch, the evening breeze carrying the scent of fresh bread. My heart feels full, like a loaf perfectly risen. This journey, my fire, my fight, My freedom taught me I'm never too old to shine. And you, listening to my story, you're part of this now. Did you like my story? What city are you from? See me in the comments. I'm right there, reading every word. If you loved this, support me with super thanks so I can keep sharing stories like this. Thank you for your amazing support. It means everything. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. On screen, you'll see 2 new real-life stories I highly recommend. There are so many more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next story. With all love and respect.